Nice. Beautiful playing. My guest today is Paul Tobey. Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you?
I think we
Hi,
are.
how are you?
Ah, thank you. Hi, how are you?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Oh, thanks, Dan. Dan has already posted your credits. He's good with that. Sometimes I can use that help of looking for credits. Um, so Paul, I forget how we met. Was it on Facebook or
I
LinkedIn
think
or?
I was trying to figure that out the other day. My wife Nancy asked me about that, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure. I think it was maybe the jazz pianist group on Facebook, which I frequent.
Yeah, yeah. Of which I try only to post people who I'm interviewing who are pianists. So I try and be good about that. Well, it's cool. So, yeah, and you are very prolific in your output. How long have you been putting out? You said you put out, th did you say three videos a week?
Five.
Five.
Yeah, so we
How long have
started the YouTube channel during COVID back in April, at the end of April in 2021.
you? Uh-huh.
So only about, well, it's coming up on a year now, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and five times a week.
Well, the YouTube algorithm is very specific. So starting up a new channel is not that easy to do, and there's quite a lot to learn about how the algo works, how people find you, how videos are found, how to get subscribers. So I've kind of been a student of that for the last year or so. And for the first, I think 3 months or so, we had very little traction. And then if you keep at it, eventually the YouTube algo sort of picks up a bit.
Yeah.
And now I think we're up to almost 1,600 subscribers in that amount of time.
Wow.
So, and they're all musicians. So we don't
Yeah.
have any regular people. It's just musicians, really. So it's a pretty refined and defined audience, intermediate to advanced. And we have some pros on there too. But yeah, I mean, that's the sort of the sum total of what I've been doing on YouTube. I mean, obviously, in my career back when I had a professional career, it was a lot different then because we didn't really have YouTube back in those days. So
Well, there's so much to learn. I mean, it just seems like every day brings some yet another thing. For instance, Dropbox, I thought was my friend, and it is to some extent. However, I archive these in Dropbox and I post the archive because I thought people can just go and but it's a limited amount of downloads. And so they've begun to block. Not only that, as if that wasn't bad enough, they don't tell me which links are being blocked. They won't tell me that. And I can't I can't pay for more download ability. So I looked around for another server, but my web person said that actually YouTube was probably the best place to store, and so I would assume that that's in what you're doing too, right?
no, I'm not really storing anything. Anything that we put on YouTube is basically for the public. Yeah. But
That's
yeah, it
what I
makes a
mean.
good
But
storage
that's what I
channel.
mean. It's like you have a place that is endless people can come and look, and
It's true. Yeah.
you can put
But
whatever you want there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, don't be surprised if I contact you and say, Paul, what, la, 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 la. And then you can say, oh, yeah, I did that like a year ago. Um, is your sound on? Yeah. Okay. So, so I know you're from Canada, fifth generation. That's a long time. And you had a professional career as a pianist. And so what years do you consider that covered?
Yeah, so I kind of see myself as somebody who's had two lives.
Yeah.
I had right out of university. So I studied music in post-secondary school. I have a couple of degrees in music. And then after that, or during university, I was working my way through it by gigging. So I actually was a professional from pretty young age. And then when I got out of university, I just started playing full time. And I never did what a lot of musicians do. I never had a side gig. I didn't flip burgers.
Huh.
I didn't have phrases like "you want fries with that." I didn't do any of that. I just played.
Yeah.
And I put out, up until the age of 39, I put out 8 albums,
Oh,
8 jazz albums. And the last few were through Arcadia. I got a recording contract with Arkadia out of New York, which was the largest independent record label at the time.
yeah.
You had all the majors, but this was basically a private business owned by
Hmm.
Bob Carsey, who was a very big jazz fan.
Yeah.
And he saw me play in The Hague one time, and he comes up after the concert and he says to me, "Are you being represented by anybody?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but I have lots of support and a team, and I've been at it a long time." He goes, "Well, how do you feel about coming to work for us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds good." So he gave me a check, and we put, and then sort of 9/11 happened, and their very close proximity to Ground Zero, and kind of things fell apart after that. Like, it really was hard to get label support for touring and things like that. And when you don't have label support, you're kind of left to your own devices. And about the same time, and I don't want to make it sound like I didn't have a good career. I had what I thought was a great career, but um, it's always pretty much hand to mouth, the music business.
Yes.
It's feast or famine kind of thing.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I had a lot of support from the Canadian government, Canada Council for the Arts and Factor and a whole bunch of funding organizations. And I did a lot of touring. But at the end of it, by around the age of 39, 40, I started developing a couple of things which weren't very conducive to moving forward. The first was tendonitis. I was playing a lot, so I had problems with my arms. And then I developed tinnitus, which is kind of this loud ringing in the ears, which kind
Yeah.
of happens when you have ride cymbals in your ears for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I played with some pretty prolific drummers, and of course, never thought about hearing protection or anything like that. And I developed tinnitus, and then I kind of, I don't want to make it sound like things went horribly wrong, but they kind of did. It's one of those famine kind of times when you're not performing, you're not getting paid. And I kind of got depressed a little bit, and then just started to look at other ways of being a good provider. I'm a father by this time. My son was very young at the time, and I'd been married for some time, and I was never a great provider. We had fun, and we had enough money, but we never had extra, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I decided that it was time to seek out other ways of extra, just to be a better provider. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. So what I did was, just to kind of get my head together, I went and walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain, which is like a 1,000-kilometer, 600-mile pilgrimage, just to kind of think, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? If music's not the main thing, do I have other skills? Do I have other things that I can do? And I didn't really have any other skills. Music was pretty much it. But most people don't need a piano player in their business, so it wasn't like I was going to get a job anytime soon, right? So I did a bit of soul searching, came back to Canada, and just started taking some courses that were not traditional type courses. I started going to seminars. And then I went to this one seminar, and they basically said, if you want to learn how to present like we do, go take this course, because they were great presenters, amazing. I was like thoroughly engaged for like 3 days. and none of them played instruments. So I'm like, if they can keep a jazz musician engaged for 3 days, and I was basically on the edge of my seat the entire time, if they can do that, they must know something I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's when I took the course, got really excited, and then started applying what I learned to not only starting a business, starting a training company for helping people with internet marketing. And back then we called it internet marketing instead of digital marketing. And also, speaking skills and things like that. I just started up that business. And at the same time, I was still playing some concerts. And I wrote 9 symphonies when I walked across Spain. So I called it the Santiago Road to Santiago Suite,
Wow.
which is basically Camino de Santiago.
Cool.
And I got some funding, got an orchestra to actually perform it. And we filled out the theater. It was like 1,100 seats. We filled that out, and that was really good. And then I tried, and at that concert, I used some of the speaking skills that I learned at the course, and it was just such a success. And then I tried shopping it around to other orchestras, and they just, like the Toronto Symphony and the Ottawa Symphony, and I sent it to 3 different symphonies, and there's a couple of problems with it. One, it wasn't really written. The scores weren't really written the kind of scores they like to see. So it wasn't, every composer likes to see things a different way, but there's kind of like a standardized format. And I didn't really follow that. And I didn't really have the time to do that. And I didn't have the inclination to do that. So they just kind of said no
Hmm.
for probably more than reasons than that. Probably never listened to the music. They probably just looked at the scores and went, yeah, this is not for us.
Yeah.
Plus, it's not like I had a really big name in the classical music world either. So I couldn't see that going any further. But as this is going on, the music, the business side or the training business is kind of taken off. I was filling rooms, not for music, but for business people on how to, a lot of it was based on digital marketing, but also other sort of personal development skills, which were very popular. And I built that business up over the last, basically since 2004. We registered the business in 2004. My wife has been working with me in it. My son worked in the business as well. Now he's running his own business. And so I'm really grateful to have that opportunity to do that. Now, as I'm starting this YouTube channel and starting to get back into the music business, I have to build up a new audience. So all of those digital marketing skills are kind of coming into play now. So that's really good. But at the same time, I have to build up a whole new audience. So how do you actually do that? How do you start from zero without record label support and all of that? And that's basically what I'm doing. I'm really trying with YouTube. And the good news about all of that is, and this is what I'm really grateful for, is that I don't actually need to make money from it, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah,
I
very.
mean, musicians had a rough go of it the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, our business didn't do as well as it did some other years, but it certainly didn't go bust. You know what I mean? Like it.
I do know. And, I just have to cut in here. I'm going to ask a personal question, but so what is your purpose for posting these videos? Because they're free to
Uh,
watch.
they are free to watch, but you can't learn how to be a great jazz musician in a 10-minute video, no matter how many there are.
Yeah.
So the purpose is to, at some point in the near future, is to host private group
Workshop.
classes
Yeah.
and master classes for those musicians. And there's going to be a very small percentage of that group, like probably 1 to 3% at the most, who are going to want to invest in their skills, in their careers. Because, we have some very talented musicians on that channel, and they feed me. It's interesting. I don't even have to think up lessons anymore. They just tell me what they want. Every day I get requests for running a lesson on this and running a lesson on that. And I just
Ah,
did some things by B.G. Adair, and I do stuff by Oscar Peterson and Bill Evans. And, they just basically tell me whatever they want,
that's
and I
cool.
give it to them.
Yeah.
And so that's working really well. But at the same time, at some point, they're going to realize that they can't learn everything I know how to do in 10-minute
Yeah.
videos. That's
Yeah.
not going to be possible.
Right. Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Plus, there's another answer to that too. Sorry if I am a little long-winded here. Trying to get everything in.
No, and you have lots of time, so feel calm and comfortable talking.
Thank you. At some point, I'd like to, I invited that audience here today. For example, I sent out an email to the list. I don't have all of the subscribers on my personal mailing list. They get on my mailing list by requesting sheet music or buying something in my online store, that kind of stuff. So I sent an email to that rather small list. It's not very big. It's like 600 people or so. And I had, 30 people request to be notified at 2:45 today, or basically 2:45 your time.
Yeah.
And that's a good sign, right? But I know that because it's free, only half of them are going to show up, and probably they're in the. I can't see the chat because I'm talking to you, but I'm sure they're
Yeah,
there
they're
on
not here
Facebook.
yet. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
some of them
nobody's
must be.
talking. They might be,
Right.
but yeah.
Well, maybe we could just ask if they're there. Just chime in and say
Are
hi.
you guys
right?
there? You can say hi, wave, or just say hi or whatever.
So that's kind of the whole strategy, is just trying to build up a new audience and find places to play. Like, I'm pretty sure in that audience, and they're from all over the world, they can give me suggestions on a potential tour, or they can, connect me with somebody who runs the music society in their city or whatever. And that's kind of how that whole thing works. So, so it's kind of twofold, helping them get to be better musicians, but also just finding a much bigger audience that I can share my music with, because I really intend to do more concerts than I've done. The last one I did was at Carnegie Hall back in 2018, which was some time ago. So I'd really like to get back into it and maybe perform 6 to 8 times a year or something like that. It doesn't matter where it is. Like, I'll travel to Bangladesh if I have to, and if there's an audience, I'll just go, right? So, because I love to travel, and we do that a couple months a year anyway, so might as well just mix a little business with it, right? So
absolutely. You do have a hello from Suzanne Houle.
Oh, cool. Hi, Suzanne. Suzanne. Yeah, nice to see you. So, can I play a little bit? Would that be okay?
Oh, really? No, I'm kidding. Of course, yes.
Because I actually thought that I'd sort of give you a synopsis of the things that I've been up to in my life. The first one is that my father is a United Church minister, so I'm actually a preacher's kid. So I grew up in the church, and it's interesting because I used to play in the church like probably every other month, just during the musical interlude or whatever like that, because it was just what I did when I was younger. My first music teacher was Markwell J. Perry. He was the organist at our church.
Oh.
I still remember asking him when I was 8 years old. I was like, Mark, can I learn to do that organ thing? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, why not? He goes, well, your legs are too short. You can't reach the pedals yet. How about we start you on piano? And then I just started on piano at 8, and I just never really left it. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because recently, as I'm participating in the jazz pianist group on Facebook, and my posts are getting, it's amazing how much traction my posts get on that group, because they're well recorded and it's good video and stuff like that. And I never post the YouTube stuff. I just post performances and just upload the video directly. And the last one I think it's just over 600, reactions and comments and shares. And it was incredible how much traction it got. But on that group, there's so many good piano players. And there's this one kid from somewhere in South America. I'm not exactly sure where it was. And he played this gospel tune. And I had people ask me to actually tear it apart and put that lesson on YouTube. So actually take this performance by this kid on YouTube and transcribe it and give a lesson on what he actually did. And when I did it, I'm learning stuff. It's like, geez, I wish I had known some of this stuff when I played at church. long ago, because it's basically a church tune.
Yeah.
And so I actually transcribed it.
Wow.
And let me play it for you, hopefully perfectly.
All
We'll see,
right.
because I actually have to read the music.
And by the way,
It's just,
by the
go
way,
ahead.
Paul Crane and
Hey, Paul.
hello from Paul Raymond and Leanne Mountjoy
Good.
from
Well, maybe
Midland.
they'll show up, but they know it's going to be a while. So thank you all, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. Let me play this this thing that I wish I could have played at church for my dad when I was younger, because it's definitely interesting. It's called No Merci Tanto Amor Jésus. It's basically like, I don't know.
Something about
No,
Jesus.
no. Anyway, I don't even want to translate it. So
Something about love and Jesus.
yeah, something about that. But I have to switch headphones. So let me do that, and I'll be back with you after I play it. It's not very long. Okay, give me
Okay.
1 second.
Roland, maybe we'll ask him to write the name so you can translate for us. Wow.
So how cool is that, though, right? Like,
Very
and you
cool.
know, when he actually posted that, he said, "I'm just a beginner. Go easy on me." And I'm like, this is not beginner stuff. It was very, very well done, and it was a
Beautiful.
pleasure actually transcribing that. And like I said, I mean, I grew up in the church, but it was very choral based.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of gospel wasn't really part of our church.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to have learned this style when I was much younger.
So this is a song that was written for the church. Actually, could you could you tell me the spelling of that, because I have my friend speaks Spanish and I want to just I just
So
want to
it's
know what.
No Mercia, Nomerecia, tanto amor. No Mercia, tanto amor. Sorry, I do it with a French accent because I kind of
Because
speak
you
a bit
speak
French.
French.
So
No me hacía tanto amor. Is there more?
no,
Jesus?
that's it.
Oh, I
I
thought.
think Jesus is the guy who popularized it. So I think his
Oh,
name is
I see.
yeah.
Roland, what is that? That's something. Well, I'm not sure what no me hacía is. Tanto amor. That's like more love or with love or something. um, that is so very beautiful. I mean, it just totally got into my heart.
I
So
love the way he starts with classical, right? In this kind of thing at the beginning. You know, that little thing there, and then he switches to kind of these rich jazz chords in the middle of this gospel tune, which is kind of really cool. And it got a ton of traction, his post on Facebook. And so all I did was I just went there, I downloaded the music, lifted it, and then did a couple of tutorials on my channel, and people loved it actually. So
Can I ask
it,
what this young person's name is?
yeah, it is something Lopez. I'll think of it.
Yeah. Well, you'll think of it as we speak.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. The
You
name is.
know,
I should have put it on the sheet music actually.
quite beautiful. Look, by the way, Laurie McDonald is here too.
Hey, Lori, how are you
Oh,
doing?
and my girlfriend, Spanish-speaking girlfriend, said it means didn't deserve so much love.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. I remember looking it up at some point. My Spanish is like, I walked across Spain a couple of times, so I can order a room and a beer and some food. And I have my favorite phrases in all the languages because I travel a lot, right? So my favorite phrase is this: "Hay alguien aquí que hable inglés?" It's like, is there anybody here who speaks English?
That's good.
And they usually go, "Yeah, that guy over there." So
Um, would you mind just playing like the first 16 bars again?
because it wasn't perfect, right? That's what you're saying.
I just want to hear it again.
Okay, 1 second.
Charles Clemenhage says he
Hey,
loves.
Charles.
That's so beautiful.
The really interesting thing is I found with the grace notes is where he's doing this. And he doesn't like do it by a half step. He does it by this. So he's
Oh,
doing a minor third. So it's a really cool sound.
oh yeah.
It took me a good couple hours actually to lift this. Because the problem was he wasn't playing a piano, he was playing a keyboard with a lot of chorus and a lot of delay on it. So it was really, really hard to hear. So I'm not sure if I got it exactly, but it's pretty close.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And the first few notes are reminiscent of a Pat Metheny song. Da, da, ba, ba, da, 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 da. Do you know that song?
Da, 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 da.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I used to play that actually. It's been a
Yeah.
while.
But yeah, that's geez, quite beautiful. Oh, Suzanne has a let's see, pretty long comment. Let's look this. I just looked this up, and these would be the words. Oh, there's words. Really? Hope I am not mistaken. In your great love, you took my place, carrying over you my guilt. I cannot imagine how did you go to stand the pain of your wounds. Well, you loved me without measures. Let me kiss today the wounds on your hands and feet, the wounds that I have caused. Let me recline my cheek on your back and cry. For having lacerated them in my wickedness, I did not deserve so much love. In your great love, you took my place. Oh, and then again, yeah. Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Really
Yeah.
beautiful. Wonder what language.
Yeah, I don't sing, so
Yeah,
it
I
would.
guess it was written, Suzanne, I guess it was written in Spanish, I'm guessing.
I
Since
actually listened to the performance of the guy, Jesus, whatever his name is, on YouTube. He's the guy that made it famous. It's got several million, likes and whatever. So it's actually quite popular,
oh,
but obviously something that we don't listen to a lot here in North America. So yeah,
yeah.
so I really enjoyed that. That was fun.
That was really
So
beautiful, and your playing is beautiful, and you obviously loved it. I wasn't sure whether to look at your hands or your face.
well, my face is probably contorted a bit because I'm not used to reading sheet music these
It
days.
was not contorted. It was interested and loving. That's what it was. It was great.
And then I guess for me, the early beginnings of jazz were much more simpler than they are. Eventually, what happened with me is I got to the point where you get, you know, and I was on a recording for Arkadia called The Young Lions of Jazz. And you get into that competition mode. I'm still kind of competitive by nature. I don't like it when I hear a great piano player that they're doing something that I don't know how to do. And basically the first thing I do is download it and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
But essentially, I got to the point in my career where it was really all about proving myself. Do you know what I mean? It's like look at how great I am. When they used to write about me in the newspaper and magazines and things like that, they used to say I had a right hand like Oscar Peterson. And so as soon as somebody says that about you, you spend all of your time making it really sound like Oscar Peterson or better than that. And that happened for most of my life. But in the early days, I played music much more simpler, and that's what I'm kind of getting back to now. It's like, it's for me, it's not really about a whole bunch of notes anymore, which I can still do. I can still, hold my own with the best of them, but I really feel that I'm much more musical than I used to be. Does that make sense? Can I give you an example of
It
that?
makes total sense.
Can I give you an example of what I mean?
Please do.
So this is a very simple tune by, and you probably know the movie. It's called Mo Better Blues, which
Uh-huh.
basically is short for More Better Blues. In other words, give us better blues, give us
Yeah.
more of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a tune that is the signature tune. It's actually called Mo Better Blues,
Yeah.
and it's a very simple tune, right? But if you listen to it in the beginning and you get into the solo section, which I'll play some solo for you. What I try to do now is be a little more musical and lyrical about what I'm playing, rather than just throw in a bunch of notes. I'll still do riffs and runs and things like that here and there, but really it's about trying to find little rhythmic melodies, mix melody with rhythm in the middle of a solo, and just be as inventive as I can, but also make it tonal, make it some kind of tonal center that the ear can go, yeah, that makes sense to me, rather than just because you hear jazz piano players, modern jazz piano players like myself, when we go all in, like with saxophones and things like that, it can get very like messy really quickly, and then people go, "I'm out of here." You know what I mean? It's no longer
It's kind of cacophony instead of,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
communication.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let me play Mo Better Blues for you,
Okay.
and then I'll come back and we'll talk about that a little bit if you're okay with it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, man. You play beautifully.
Thank you. So do you see what I mean about just kind of starting off and trying to find other melodies within the same tune that are not that far out, and then eventually in the solo there's some riffs and some runs like that, but it's more tasteful. Usually in the old days I would just dive in and kind of just ream off a whole bunch of
Yeah.
and I was just like going crazy because just trying to prove myself. But I find as the years go by I'm quite a lot more musical than I used to be.
Yeah, I believe me, I not only understand from my own point of view and my own music, but I can't tell you the amount of people that I talk to who talk about this same thing. I think it's a combination too. I think it's a combination of growing older and also, quite frankly, what's been going on in the world. Because we had this shock that happened a few years ago. For a few months everybody was in shock, and then they started kind of reevaluating, and wanting to be in the moment and experience good things, which really to me is what you're saying. You be in the moment. What, you don't have to like rush off and do lots of different things. If you want to work, I mean, God, how many times has Keith Jarrett played that same melody over and over, and then with little developments, and then eventually, is like goes somewhere brilliant and then comes back down to it again, just like, yeah, like you did. So I think I'm totally in understanding of it. I think it's really spiritually, philosophically, musically, whatever you want to say. I think it's really a great path. I really do.
Well, I'm not exactly sure where it's going to end up. Like I said, my main purpose right now is to try to find a semi-retirement path that includes music,
Yeah.
because I've been out of the music business now for the better part of 20 years.
Yeah.
So to get back into it, I feel I'm still young enough. I mean, obviously Chick Corea played till he was well into his 70s. And,
Yeah.
I think health-wise I'm good. It's just I need to build up a new audience, and I think the YouTube was probably the best choice that I could have made. I spent a lot of time, quite frankly, Cathy, just um, listening to. It's funny. Interestingly enough, I believe that if you help enough people get what they want, you can get what you want.
I'm with you.
Help somebody else get what they want first, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one day and I don't remember who it was, I don't remember her name, and I don't remember what I did, but I helped somebody online in a significant way. I don't remember exactly what it was,
Yeah.
but it was significant, obviously significant enough for her that she gifted me a course. And because I'm a learn-it-all, and she paid $2,500 for this course.
Wow.
And anybody who pays $2,500 for a course and gives it to me for free, I'm going to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a gift from the
Yeah.
universe, right? So I watched it. My wife and I sat down and we watched the course. It was only 2 hours long. Can you believe it? $2,500 for 2 hours.
Wow.
It was worth 2,500. It was worth 25,000 in my opinion.
Huh.
Because basically what it did was it's a YouTube producer who laid out his formula, 5-part formula for building a YouTube channel.
Oh.
And I just basically followed those rules, which I'm very good at following rules. Obviously, I learned how to play the piano, so there's obviously some rules in there. But I followed the 5 rules and learned some other things along the way. And I can tell you we get right now 10 to 20 new subscribers a day. So it's starting to sort of pick up steam, if you will. And they're all musicians, meaning that's the audience I'm seeking.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't subscribe to my channel if you weren't at that level, because we don't go like this. Put your finger on middle C,
Yeah.
and then play a third above that,
Yeah.
and then play a third above that, and you
that's
have
a
a
chord.
C triad.
Yeah.
That is the basis for all music, and people get really excited about that, but not my audience. My audience is like, what? They're like, how do you play a C7? you know, how do you do scales like this, where you've got, you know, a minor chord like this, and then every other note is a diminished chord like this. You get the idea? Like, how do you actually put block chords together? That's the kind of audience that I have. And so, and I was, you know, so grateful to watch that series by this guy named Nate Woodbury. You might want to check him out on YouTube.
Nate
Nate
Woodbury.
Woodbury.
Uh-huh.
And he gave, you know, this 5-part formula. Basically, it's like 10-minute videos, 5 times a week. Here's the thumbnail formula. Here's how to do, you know, he didn't really do search, but we learned that from somebody else. And then, you know, you have to have at least 50% watch time. So if they only watch like a minute of your 10-minute video, that's not good. That tells YouTube it's not very good, you know. So it's all about increasing. So you put in things like content hooks and things like that. So, so yeah, I mean, it's going well. I'm glad I did it. I probably, if somebody said, here's how much work it's going to be, I probably wouldn't have done it, because I have to literally like think up lessons. I have 3 cameras, 2 audio systems. I mean, I give my video editor, like I trained my video editor, and I give him basically 6 clips per video that he has to kind of put together. So it's a lot of work, but yeah, anyway.
Has anyone, I'm just curious, you know, something that I always wanted to learn, I almost learned it, but I happen to love the way Michael Brecker solos. And I knew that there was some piece of information that I didn't know about, you know, what he was doing. Do you ever get questions about his solos or musically things like that?
Not yet, but I am a fan of Michael Brecker, and I used to do some of his music back in the day.
Yeah.
I think probably well, you know, it's interesting. I took a slice off his writing skills. So in that group, my goal as an arranger or as an orchestrator and a composer was to kind of emanate that sound.
Yeah,
You know, that kind of modern sound, but also be musical at the same time. Actually, I can give you an example of that if you'd like to hear it. So, so this, I actually need the music for this too. So this is called acquiescence, which basically means not giving up, but basically giving in to what's inevitable.
Yeah, I love that word, acquiesce.
Right. So, you know, I'm going to acquiesce to this person's will, right? So I'm basically acquiescing to the feeling of music at that time, right? It's like I'm basically giving in, and I'm trying to compose based on, and Michael Brecker was a big part of my life at that time. Pat Metheny, Michael Brecker, Chick Corea. Who else would have been in that? Oh, I know, Joshua Redman. I was big totally into Joshua Redman.
Maybe
so this
Herbie,
came right out of that period.
Herbie Hancock, probably.
Herbie, not so much, but yeah, I mean, kind of the same sort of modern style. It's a bit of a, it's actually a begin. You know what a begin is?
You know, I don't know if I know the actual meaning of the word.
It's basically, it's a Latin rhythm.
Oh, okay.
So just like bossa nova,
like begin,
just like salsa, it's a begin.
Yeah.
It's like it has a certain dance step. You know what I mean? So let me play this, and then we'll kind of discuss it a little bit. And if you want, you try to remember little things, and I'll just redo them if you need to. Okay, one sec.
I'm having a class. This is perfect. You know, because I'm taking a jazz piano class now, so this is really cool. Lovely.
It was probably totally right out of the Joshua Redman playbook at the
Oh, really?
time.
I heard,
Yeah, kind
I
of like,
felt, I really felt Chick Corea.
yeah,
Uh,
there's a little bit of chicken there
and it
for
kind
sure.
of, is it Spain or something? Ba-da-dum. I forget what song that is.
There's
Dee-dee.
actually probably a couple of hints of different melodies in there that came from other tunes, but
But I mean,
basically,
your voicings and how the chords go, it was very Chick Corea like for me. Yeah,
yeah, thanks.
yeah, it's beautiful. Let's see. Yeah, hi Kanga. Hi Andrew. Charlie Alexander is here and um, Charles Clemenhage. Hi
Yeah,
Joy.
so Charles I know.
Charles.
Charles is my realtor.
Oh, cool. That's
So
always nice to have.
I keep I had a pretty big Christmas concert. I do a Christmas concert every year. At least for the last couple of years on because of COVID, I did one from my just like this, over Zoom. And I had, 300 or so people register. So I sent an email to part of that list, not the entire list. So,
Yeah.
you might get a few people that, attend my Christmas concert, just sort of friends of mine who we've just been friends for a long time, and he's recently been my realtor. So the house I just moved here. So we live
Oh,
on in Niagara on the Lake,
oh,
which is basically the south shore of Lake Ontario,
uh-huh.
and in the Niagara area. So closest to us would be Niagara Falls, right?
Oh,
So Niagara on the Lake is like if you go over the falls and you follow the river, that river flows into Lake Ontario, and we're at the mouth of the river, right? That's
sounds
called Niagara on the
beautiful.
Lake. It's a beautiful, picturesque little town.
Yeah.
And we just moved out of Toronto because
I
I don't
was
know. I
wondering,
guess
the background looks so like unused. I was wondering if you were in an office space, like and just hadn't like filled it up because my house looks a lot different than that.
well, my house is in a very so this isn't where the piano's going to end up. So right now it's in the living room with sort of the kitchen in the background, and I'm looking out onto the forest. I have these giant sort of giant glass wall that just basically looks out over the forest, which is really nice. Never had that before. Thanks, Charles. Um, and the piano's not supposed to be here. I have a studio for it. So there was actually a nanny suite that one of the reasons why we bought it was not just for the view and for the location and everything, but it also had this nanny suite that I'm converting into a studio. But the floors, it's taken 2 months to get the floors for it, and they're
Oh,
apparently here now, so they're going to start next week. And then the piano gets moved over there.
oh,
So
cool.
eventually you won't see the kitchen in the background. But we had to have a place to put the piano, so it just kind of ended up here.
That's great. That's fine. Hey, yeah, I actually during the pandemic we redid our kitchen, and that was a long time that I was basically had my kitchen in my living room. And it was and washed the dishes in the bathtub. It was a long time. It was about 9 months. Yeah, yeah. So I can feel you. Um, so do you find um do you find that you have similar lessons or points of view in your two different career areas?
So are you talking about like the business world versus the music world?
Yeah, I mean, I know
Yeah.
people do, but I'm asking you specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit different because the music world is about performance and it's about enjoyment from a standpoint of, just listening and enjoyment, right? The business world is, especially the training company, that was about information. So it's a different type of information because information that they can take and they can utilize in order to achieve a specific goal. So in that regard, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
but only when it pertains to knowledge. Like my jazz channel is about knowledge. It's about training other musicians how to get better at their craft. Not just from a playing standpoint, but from a holistic rhythmic standpoint, a mental standpoint, mental, emotional, spiritual, that kind of thing, but also at the same time, music from a performance standpoint is just meant to be enjoyed. So it's a little bit different there. But I take the same approach to helping people learn music that I did in the business world. It's basically a step-by-step formula. You can't be vague when you're giving information. If you give vague information and you apply vague information, you get vague results. And random gets random, right? So what you want to do, and this is how I learned to train, is basically a template for knowledge that people can, and I actually wrote a book about this. It's called Acquiescence, which sold actually quite a lot. It's not Acquiescence, sorry. It's called Suggestology. Sorry, I got both
You
things
got
in my head.
those.
It's called Suggestology, which is the art of activating someone's natural will to learn something. So part of the way that I train and the response that I'm getting is based on that knowledge, right? They don't really know what's happening, but they know that they're engaged. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
It's like when somebody is engaged and participating, they will get something out of it, and in return, they'll probably buy something. It's kind of like the law of reciprocity. If we learn something of value, then they'll give back some way. They'll give back by giving me examples of things they want to learn. They'll give back by participating with thanks and all this kind of stuff. So I've trained them, and they don't even realize it's happening, but there's probably some people on here from that channel. You'll recognize it if you go back to my videos. It's all about, well, how do you actually learn something? And it's very much a step-by-step formula, right? I analyze the heck out of everything. I don't leave anything on the table from that regard, but at the same time, I'm engaging them in a very tactile way. It's not just I'm talking at you, I'm talking with you, and I'm talking you through something. Does that make sense?
Sure.
In the live trainings that I used to do, which I haven't done, and I'm actually getting back to that this year because it was all shut down because of COVID. And my first training is coming up in a few weeks. Somebody basically called up and says, I have $6,000 to spend. What can you give me? I mean, that's the kind of business life that I have, right? It's like, okay, well, how about we do this? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So, and so, when I go into that room, it's very different because I get immediate feedback, right? They're participating. It's like I give a 3-day train the trainer course. They're on their feet 90% of the time, actually doing the work. They're actually training. They're actually practicing that.
Yeah.
When you're doing one-way videos, you still have to consider that, right? You still have to consider, how does somebody actually learn? And that's what I find is very different about my channel than everybody else's. First of all, I use a real piano, which very few people do, right? They're all about keyboards, and they use the little thing where the notes display in red and all that kind of stuff, right? Where I'm using sheet music, right? Because you can't get to my level without reading music. There's just no way that's ever going to happen, right?
Yeah.
We can't just put your hands like this. That's never going to work with that level of audience, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to get, you're going to get so far, but you'll never get past that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about, that step-by-step formula.
Yeah.
So I hope that wasn't too long-winded an answer for you.
Yeah, I kind of lost my honestly, I lost my the answer to my question, but it was you probably were answering it, but I hadn't maybe considered what it was. I guess I'm just always intrigued. I wrote this little book called The Act of Becoming, which is about
Nice.
which is about, it's a philosophy, and it talks about this, how the same lesson in life can apply to voice technique, can apply to performing jazz. So I'm kind of enthralled by that, how lessons cross over. So that's why I asked. But
I kind of tried to connect the dots there. I think the short answer is, does the training methodology differ for business people versus musicians?
Yeah.
And the answer is not by much.
Yeah. It's just
The
kind of the hands-on part.
I used to have a trainer. His name was Brian Clemmer, bless his heart. He built a very successful company in the United States, and he died at 61. He had a carotid artery tear just out of nowhere. And
Sorry, your sound changed.
oh, sorry. I was saying that I had a friend in the United States, a trainer named Brian Clemmer. He was a mentor to me, actually, in my early years in the business. And I actually helped his company come out of near bankruptcy, helped him market, helped him get back on the map, because my training company was doing well and he wanted to know how we were doing it. And I'm basically, here's how you do it. And then he was flying through Toronto one day, and he invited me out to the airport, and he said, okay, so what do you want? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you helped me so much. It's like, what do you want? It's like, name it. I said, well, I want to spend more time with you. He goes, done. I want to play at Carnegie Hall. He goes, done. We'll make that happen. And I don't know, there was some other thing. I don't want to go through the whole thing. And then a week later, he died. So
Oh.
I never got that reciprocity that he wanted to give me. But he had a saying that was very influential in my learning how to help people. It's like intention plus mechanism equals results. So what do you actually intend to create from within, right? What is it your heart actually wants? Not what your mind wants, but what your heart wants. What do you truly want in this life? And then add to that a mechanism, which is a step-by-step formula in order to create it equals results. And so in that regard, the business world and the piano world are the same. We just use different mechanisms. Piano is about sheet music and understanding the math of how these keys are laid out. Whereas the business world is about a formula which you can apply to your business, which gets a measurable result.
Right. Okay. I got that.
A little harder to measure the music side, a
Yeah.
lot easier to measure the business side, because the business
Yeah.
side is measured in basically numbers.
Results. Yeah.
Results, right?
I see that.
Monetary usually is what businesses want. So
I do have a question from my friend Mark. He said, how important is metadata when promoting music in this digital age? Can you embed the metadata into the music? It's a good question.
In the case of YouTube, you can embed metadata in the video itself. There's a speech algorithm that understands what you say. So there's a speech recognition software that YouTube is employing to know if the actual description of the video matches what you actually do in the video. If those two match, that's a point for you. So in that regard, yes. Is there metadata in music from a marketing standpoint? No. Only from a copyright standpoint. If you're duplicating somebody else's work, for example, I've done videos about Take 5, which is the most popular jazz song of all time. Actually, I'd love to play that for you if you wouldn't mind. Yeah. But it immediately got flagged on YouTube for copyright. It doesn't mean I can't have it on my channel. It just means I can't earn revenue from it as a YouTube partner. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, even on this show, I can't play like official quote unquote videos, of people, because in an ideal world, I would imagine that Facebook and YouTube would have people who would say, okay, in order to play these songs, these type of videos, you have to buy this license for the year, and then then they distribute, but they don't do that. So they actually have shut me down and taken me down. So
taking your whole channel down?
They've taken the ability for me to come on live for like a week or so. They've also removed, like, let's say you and I were having this conversation and there was an official video on here. They would take that part totally off. And so it would be blank while that time was going by. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot more when you become a partner, and you basically have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in the last 12 months. And if you fall below that 4,000 watch hours, they'll take it away.
Hmm.
So you have to have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers and then 4,000, which is not an easy thing to do, by the way, 4,000 watch hours. That's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
We did it, and that's cool. Once you get to that point, there's a little more leeway in what you can do and what you can't do. For example, I could put links in videos that link to my whatever I want, any URL, right? Whereas before that, I could only link to other videos. So they give you quite a bit more latitude. I'm not sure if I answered Mark's question. Maybe he could elaborate a little bit, because metadata.
He said thank you, but
Okay, so that's cool. So I hope he got the
because
answer to the question.
metadata,
I mean,
yeah, that's metadata is digital data about the product, right?
yeah, essentially, most metadata is in text format.
Okay.
So, for example, the metadata of a video would be the title, the description, the words that are said in that video, and the tags, things like that. Just like a web page is title, description, URL, H1 tags, alt tags, things like that. That's the metadata that is understood by whatever channel it is.
Yeah.
For example, how does Google understand a web page?
Yeah.
Right? How does the Google search engine understand a web page? That's very different, and that's what I used to help businesses with. I still help businesses do that.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I remember a few years ago being enlightened, although obviously not 100% because I can't speak on it very clearly, but that metadata was important for me to have in my CDs so that all the musicians could get credit for appearing on recordings.
That would be a hard thing to do. It's probably possible, although that wasn't a consideration when we put CDs out. Wasn't, because the music is basically based on who owns the tune and then who owns the arrangement. So if you play somebody else's song, like a jazz standard that is not in the public domain, which is basically anything younger than 75 years, basically.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions to that, but if you play a song that's less than 75 years, which is most jazz standards, you have to pay what's called mechanical rights to the publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
If you make an arrangement, you own that arrangement. If somebody else decides to do the same arrangement, they owe you mechanical rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's as far as that goes. It doesn't come down to who played on the album and did they get a cut. It's not about that. It's about
this was so definite that you had to put the musicians in there so that they could make their money from it. I don't know, but
no,
it's
that would be extremely only unless they have a performance an arranger credit
okay.
or a composition credit. But from a performance standpoint,
no,
not really. No.
Okay, good. That's interesting. Well, so
not that I know of. I don't know everything, but I put out a lot of music and I follow copyright laws very closely. I've had lots of people infringe on my copyright over the years, lots of them. So, most of it I let go because most of the people doing it didn't make any money from it anyway, so it's not worth my time to go after it or do anything like that, right? If somebody picked it up and used it on a commercial, that's a different story, right? That's a business that you can go after and, do whatever.
I had a woman in Italy, in Sicily, with a B&B who used my song, my recorded song, and my original in her promotion for her B&B. And we contacted each other somehow, or I heard it, or she sent it to me or something. And she offered to put me up for a month in Sicily.
Yeah, great.
At B&B.
Perfect.
Yeah, to me, that was great,
Yeah, that's more than you'd ever earn from the mechanical rights.
Yeah.
For her to do that, depending on how much reach there was, she would have only paid $100 or $200. Like it's not a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So for me to put out an album, it's based on how many do you expect to sell, how many people will it reach, that kind of thing. And it's all changed now because nobody buys CDs anymore. It's all about
it's crazy,
Spotify and
crazy.
iTunes and things like that. So yeah. Actually, I was going to play I was going to play Take Five for you, just because
Yeah, but before you
it's
do, I just
probably
want
something
to
that most people recognize.
absolutely. But before you do, Mark, the guy who asked that question, he said, right now I'm using metadata on my website with hashtags, but I
Yes.
heard when audio is recorded, you can input data into the recording.
Um, so the recording itself, so if you're playing an MP3 on a website, you can embed metadata. Yes, that's true. But in the recording itself, not that I'm aware of, unless you have special technology.
Okay.
So there is technology now, and I actually know the guy who owns one of these companies. He's had millions of dollars in investment, because if you're at a baseball game and there's seventh inning stretch, the music that's played, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, you can embed metadata in that sends notifications to everybody's cell phone who's in that audience. So, but that's very advanced technology and not something that most people would do on a website, a web page, or even YouTube. So,
It's crazy wild. Um, I have another question. This is totally unrelated, but it's from Joyce Glasgow, who's a big jazz fan. She was looking at your bio and it said you're a tinnitus. How do you pronounce that?
tinnitus, yes.
Tinnitus expert. Could you talk about your specialty with that and how to deal with it or remedy it?
When I got tinnitus, January the 6th, 2002, which is basically a few months after 9/11, I went into a tailspin, and I still have it. It's very annoying and very high pitched, and I've tried lots of different therapies and things like that. The best answer I can give is look up this on YouTube. Look for, it's a very popular video that I did. It's just do a search for what is the best treatment for tinnitus. And I have this video that I put in there of all the things that I've tried over the years and what I actually do, how I deal with it, things like that. Interesting, that video is so popular. I've been recently approached by a company in France who built software, which is a data collection system worldwide for people with tinnitus, and they want me to endorse their entire thing and do another video and blah, blah, blah. So, it's amazing what things can lead to when you kind of put yourself out there.
Yeah.
But that's the best answer I can give. I mean, it's a really long answer. So go watch that 10, 12-minute video. It's called What is the Best Treatment for Tinnitus? Paul Tobey, you'll find it, even if you
Great.
just search for what is the best treatment for tinnitus. So
Yeah, I wrote that there. Okay, great. And now take five, and I just have a little story for you before you go.
go.
When I first moved to California, and one of my first singing jobs was a job at this kind of well-known restaurant bar called the Money Tree. And at that time, it was great at that time because these were how the gigs were. Like each singer would have 2 weeks, right? And then there would be a new singer. So we had like this residency for 2 weeks. It was great. That, I don't even know if that would ever happen again. But the bass player was Senator Eugene Wright, who was the bassist on Take Five.
That's right. Did you have a relationship or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, friend relationship. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, let me play it, and it's not very long, so. And I have a few other things that I wanted to play as well.
Okay.
I wanted to get into the kind of ballad thing a little bit,
Okay.
if we could. So, anyway, let me play this, and we'll come right back.
I'm assuming you all heard that. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, take five.
One of my sort of things that not a lot of people play that actually. Not a lot of jazz musicians play it because it's not that easy to play in 5/4, but also it's kind of hard to remember. It's in E
Remember,
flat minor, which is not, it's kind of
you
like
mean
G flat.
the progression is hard to remember?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to remember all those notes, right? But I've just been playing it for so long. I even actually messed up the melody a little bit in the beginning because it's like, where's my brain right now? It's like my fingers don't always, my fingers kind of do what they want, and the brain kind of catches up a little bit. And sometimes the
Yeah.
fingers don't always do what they're supposed to do.
Well, the song is a little hard to sing, but I've been singing it for years. But um, so many people keep trying to rearrange it, you know? You know what I mean? They're just make it into something else. And so it's kind of I don't know.
It
I've
has
heard,
some merit when you do that,
yeah,
um, but at the same time, there's nothing quite like the original Paul Desmond version, which is
I know. That is so true.
it's just such a sweet tune, and it was so popular. Actually, it's funny. I have a little Dave Brubeck story for you. So, um, I got a call last minute by the Montreal Jazz Festival, which is the largest jazz festival in the world, by the way, in terms of audience, in terms of the number of concerts, whatever. And it's earned quite a reputation. So people come from all over the world for that festival. And I got a call from them about a month before it starts and said, we've had a cancellation. Somebody from Europe can't make it. Can you fill in? And I'm like, well, fill in for what? And he's like, it's a solo piano concert, two of them, two different sets at Salle-Jésus, which is an old converted monastery. Salle-Jésus, which means house of Jesus. um, and there's a 9-foot Fazioli, $240,000 that they brought in for this thing. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, are you crazy? Like,
Yes.
how fast can I get there? So I go, and at the end of the first concert, the director of the Montreal Jazz Festival, Andre Menard, is in the back of the room, and he comes to see me, and he goes, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, nothing, just kind of hanging out. He goes, come with me. So he takes me and my wife, Nancy, and we go backstage at Place des Arts, which is the large concert venue. I'm playing in the little concert venue. That's the big one, right? With all the big name acts. And he takes me in there, and we go down the hallway, and we end up in the green room, and sitting there is Dave Brubeck and his lovely wife. And we basically sit down and talk to him for like an hour. I get to like just me and him. It's just me
Yeah.
and Nancy and our two couples. And Andre had to leave. He had some other things. We just kind of sat there. At some point, he gets up and he goes to play the concert because they give him the 5-minute warning. He goes, and so we go backstage and we watch him walk on stage. And I kid you not, as soon as he put one foot on that stage, every single person in that like 3,500 person audience stood on their feet and gave him a standing ovation without even playing a single note. And I'm like, I'm in the presence of like jazz royalty, and I just got to talk to this guy for like an hour, which was like a big dream. And he signed a CD of mine, and we took pictures and all that kind of stuff. And one of the goals that I had in life was to reproduce that, right? Go to a concert where everybody stands before playing a note. So I got close. So when I played Carnegie Hall back in 2018, I got a standing ovation after one song. Before the song was even over, I got a standing ovation from like 2,200 people,
Yeah.
which was very cool. So I got kind of, but I'll never, obviously, who knows what's in store for me, but that's jazz royalty, right? That's like super, super jazz royalty. I was so privileged to be able to do that.
That's great. Yeah. It's so nice when you meet the statesmen, I call them statesmen, of jazz, and they're cool, and you really you gain so much out of it, don't you? It's so fulfilling and
Yeah.
so kind of philosophically and spiritually educational. Um, Part of well, I grew up with my dad was a sax player, so I used to go on gigs with him and rehearsals and stuff. So I got a little intro that way, and then besides my own introduction through school and stuff, when I got older, well, when I moved here, I worked as a waitress at Dante's, which was one of the more famous jazz clubs. And there, I met all kinds of, amazing people. And I will never forget the ones who touched my heart, and who were looking out for me. I was 21,
Hmm.
and yeah, they were watching out for me. They saw something in me that was creative, even without even hearing me sing yet, and it was it was a very big welcoming, like welcome into the family, and it just really made huge impressions on me. So, yeah, for you to meet and sit around for an hour and talk with Dave and his wife, that must have been really lovely.
He was a very nice man. Well, I mean, he was getting on, right? I think he's 72 at the time.
Yeah, I think he lived
Just, I mean,
past
obviously,
100.
when you're 72, you have a tremendous amount of life experience, and you're pretty much cool about everything, I suppose.
I don't know about that. 72 to me now is young, but I think he lived past 100,
Who?
Dave.
No, actually, he died I believe it was at, uh, I want to say not, I want to say in his 80s. It wasn't that long ago, actually. I remember putting something online about it.
Let's see.
Um,
I'm looking up.
'92?
He was
Or,
born in 1920 and he in December 5th, the 6th, and died December 5th, 2020, 2012.
2012, yeah.
So
So
what
10
is
years ago.
that? Yeah, so he was
So how old was he?
90, 89, 88 or something, right?
Yeah,
Something like that. I thought
yeah.
I read about him traveling. I thought he had been like 100 or 90 or something, but I read about him traveling and like he would get on the plane and he wouldn't travel business class or first class. He was traveling, you know, Dave Brubeck,
Well,
at
there's something that I do that Dave Brubeck
older
doesn't do.
age. Travel? Oh,
Travel.
travel.
I haven't been to coach in such a long time. I refuse. I refuse to do that.
That's funny. I know another musician who is 92, David Amram, and David Amram lives in New York, and he was the French horn player on things like Mingus records and Charlie Parker records, all those. And then he was the resident composer for the New York Philharmonic. And then he is like an Americana composer, piano player, singer. He was very dear friends with Jack Kerouac. And
Oh, okay.
so at the age of 92, he has like 12 different projects always that he's working on. And he just flew out to LA actually about a week or two ago to perform for this big Jack Kerouac thing. And yeah, so pretty pretty amazing. I mean, and we've talked about it. He's really great to talk to. He's just, he's interested in things. He has stayed interested in things. I'm sure he has aches and pains, but they're,
We could talk about that if you want. Yeah.
uh,
Age is not kind to the body.
I know it's really you have to figure out like what the heck is going on, man. How can I make this better, So do you arrange as well, like in like this period of time? I mean, I understand the stuff that you've been talking about, but do you also do that?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of arranging. So most of the albums that I put out were all arranged music. I would
Do you
hire,
still do you still do?
not right now. right now I'm really focused on just helping other musicians kind of learn their craft. At some point, I'm sure the musicians on my channel will want to get into arranging a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
we can certainly go there. I
Yeah.
did study composition and arranging, but most of what I know is from the bandstand, right? Just putting projects together.
Yeah.
I did an album called Wayward once, which was a big band. Um, I did all the arranging for the symphonies that I wrote. So for the
Right.
Road to
Right.
Santiago suite, I did every part for that. So yeah, I'm pretty versed in that. It's not my focus at the moment, simply because I don't have any gigs. So
Right.
if I get a gig and I get a tour, I'll probably end up doing some arranging depending on who's on it. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. Mhm.
You know, I just have to put a little thing in there that I have been to Santiago.
Oh, have you?
Yes, I performed
As a pilgrim or
a performer, and I
performer?
performed in a super old theater where the stage actually was not level. It kind of tilted, and I didn't need a microphone. It was
Hmm.
like,
You're talking
oh my
about
God.
Santiago de Compostela in Spain, right?
In Spain, yeah.
In Spain, yeah.
Yeah. It was really
It's a great
amazing. And
place.
I really wanted to I really wanted to walk down I really wanted to. Sorry, my husband just showed me this thing that we got in Amazon. That's the Lomi. I'm so excited. This machine that you put all your garbage in and some plastic, and it makes dirt. I'm really excited to get into it. It's called a Lomi. Anyway, but yeah, and I walking down the streets, I just and I have this thing. I don't know why, but I just really wanted to go into someone's home to see how it was inside because the outside looked ancient, right? But people
Yeah.
were living there, you know. I mean, I just I really was dying to do that. I never did that because I was kind of in and out, you know, basically for the concert.
Well, I stayed in Santiago for a few days before continuing on the because the pilgrimage can go past that. It goes to the coast if you want to. So
Uh-huh.
it's another like 100 kilometers,
Yeah.
which I did. And you get to this lighthouse called, it's a little town called Finistère, which in French means end of the earth. Because back before the New World was discovered, this was the furthest point west in Europe.
Oh,
It kind of sticks out into the ocean a little bit.
it's
So,
quite
but I
windy
did
there
I did
too.
end up staying in Santiago de Compostela for a few nights, and I can tell you it was pretty meager. Um, we stayed at the hostel for the pilgrims for one night, and then we stayed at a small whatever. I didn't have any money back then. Really, I was like not destitute, but you know, it was, and I got a grant actually to do that. So I got a
Ah,
grant to write that music, so that was very helpful. So,
I want to
but
hear
still, you know,
that. I
it only
definitely want to
stretches
hear
so
that.
far.
I guess
Do you want to hear some of that music?
yes, I'd love to. And by the way, just so you know, but Nancy's handling this, but Mark said he wants to buy your book, but your website it wasn't allowing him to place an order. He gets an error message. But Nancy
Uh-oh.
said to
Okay,
send an
I'll go fix
email
this. So
to
he's
you.
trying to purchase Suggestology? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go fix that after we're done.
Okay.
If Nancy's that's my wife, she's paying attention. So if she
Yeah.
could get Mark's email address, we'll kind of sort that out for him.
She said to send you an email. So,
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Okay, let me play let me play something from the Road to Santiago suite. This is called Caminar, which in Spanish means walking. So to put this into context, when I signed up to go, in other words, bought a plane ticket, there's no really sign up process. And you end up in the Pyrenees Mountains and you walk westward towards Santiago de Compostela. When I booked that plane ticket, I was fine. And then I went and did a little skiing in upper state New York, and I ended up twisting my knee.
Uh-oh.
And I went to 3 doctors before getting on the plane. Everyone said, you can't walk to the end of the sidewalk. What makes you think you can walk across Spain? You're going to need to cancel. Well, I'd already booked the plane ticket. It was non-refundable. And I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'll go there. I'll take a bus between cities and,
Yeah.
you know, be a bus pilgrim or whatever. And I'll just write music and fulfill the terms of the grant, right?
Yeah.
I get there, I get dropped off at Roncesvalles by some bus in the middle of like at the top of the Pyrenees Mountains. And my leg is all bandaged up and I've got crutches. And we stay the night at, and when I say we, I hired a videographer to go with me and document the music process,
Yeah.
just because it was part of the grant.
Yeah.
We stayed at the Refugio, and then the next day, like 6 o'clock in the morning, everybody's gone, and we're like waking up, going, dumb Canadians, like, what's going on? It's like, well, they're all walking the Camino, right? They're all getting there because they want to get a bed at the next Refugio, whatever, the whole race thing.
Jeez.
We start walking, and I'm literally like limping badly. By the time everyone else took 7 hours to walk that first leg through the mountains, I took 17 hours. So by the time I got there, it was like midnight. There was no room for me. I had to walk an extra half an hour to get to some place where there was like a couple of other pilgrims who also didn't get beds. Some lady was there, said, listen, your leg looks really bad. Can I perform Reiki on it? I'm like, hey, this is like the Camino de Santiago where spiritual things happen. If you ever read The Pilgrimage by Paulo Coelho, all this stuff, right? So she does Reiki on me. The next day, it's not any worse. I wake up, I figured it'd be a lot worse and I wouldn't be able to walk at all because it had blown up like a balloon. The next day I started walking, and it went a little bit better, but as I'm limping down the Camino, this song came into my head. And the song, if you listen to the song, it actually has a limp in it. I'll let you, so it's like this. It's the limp, right? And it's kind of like that little thing that kind of gets, and this song came into my head and it became the basis for the whole Road to Santiago suite. And I wrote it in my head as I'm walking this pilgrimage. So you'll hear that in there. 3 days later, by the way, I was completely healed.
Wow.
So for anyone who thinks that it's not a spiritual pilgrimage and it doesn't have healing powers, doesn't really understand.
Wow.
Because people have been walking it since basically Christ died.
Yeah.
And, that's what the whole pilgrimage was about. So definitely a lot of energy. It's right underneath the brightest part of the Milky Way. It basically, if you just follow the Milky Way, you can walk all the way across Spain.
Wow.
Because in the old days they didn't have markers, right? You had to kind of navigate by the stars, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
And then once you got to Santiago de Compostela, you had to walk back. It's not like you could get on a plane and go home, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where the Templar Knights came from, because you would deposit your money before walking with the Templar Knights, and you'd get it back upon leaving, like a banking system with a little bit of a penance for Christ, and like a tithe for Christ and stuff like that. But anyway,
Oh, interesting.
so this is called Caminar, which is basically the walking song.
Okay. Very beautiful, huh? That was very beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, Roland would like to know, is this recorded and can he purchase it?
Um, so yes and no. So we couldn't afford to have the symphony. So we have a recording from the symphony, but we couldn't afford to release it because we would have to pay the musicians performing rights, and they're all unionized. So that would have been a very expensive venture that we probably would have never made back. And so we decided not to do that. So um, the plan for the near future is to re-record that as solo piano, like re-record the whole
Hmm.
symphony
Yeah.
as solo piano pieces, which
Yeah.
I intend to do, but I haven't done yet. So the answer is it's coming.
Okay. All right. Well, Roland will keep listening for that and watching, because that's how he is. And Joyce also said it was reflective and peaceful, and she could imagine the walk and the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
As I
beautiful.
play it, I'm totally like
Brought
brought
back.
back to that
Yeah.
situation, and like I'm like walking, and it speeds up a little bit
Uh-huh.
during the tune. So when it gets to this section, when it gets there, I originally had the speed somewhere around here. And so that's reflective of as you walk, you're kind of picking up the pace a
Right.
little bit, not just based on how far you have to go and you only have so much light to get there, but also because there's other pilgrims along the road that kind of keep you moving along, if that makes sense. Not a lot of them, but there's kind of this sense of we just got to get there. And so as you sort of heal and your body gets stronger, you get faster and faster as the road progresses. And by the end of the pilgrimage, we actually got quite fast. We would,
Uh-huh.
walks that would take most people, 7 or 8 hours, it was taking us 4 or 5. Because I'm also 6'2", so that's, I got quite the stride.
Cool. Is your wife musical?
It's interesting. She doesn't understand music from a technical standpoint, but she has a very good ear. So a lot of people who sing to like popular tunes can't sing because they're tone deaf. She has a very good ear for that, and she has a very nice voice, but she's never worked at it. But so when I met her at a jazz club in Montreal back 26 years ago,
Yeah.
she came in. She was working for Heenan Blakey, which is Pierre Elliott Trudeau's law firm. He's
Hmm.
the former Prime Minister of Canada, and his son is the current Prime Minister. Oh, don't even get me started. Um, she was articling there and studying for her LSATs to become a lawyer, and she comes into the club one night, Hotel de la Montagne, and I noticed her immediately. She came in and requested a Whitney Houston song, and then I said something really stupid to her because it's a jazz club and she's requesting Whitney Houston songs, and I was really mean. But eventually, kind of it all worked out,
Eventually, obviously.
and then she was working and she got another job. And at some point, we had this opportunity or I had this opportunity that was going to take me out of the country. And so what she did was she quit her job so she could come with me. And we opened up the first full-fledged jazz club in Dubai.
Oh,
And
wow.
then Abu Dhabi after that. And, I became this little sort of rock star in the Middle East.
Huh.
Not rock star, jazz star, I guess. And she managed my career from that point. So she started booking tours, and she just basically stopped working for other people and just became sort of my manager. And then it was costing me like 15% of everything. So I just decided, hey, I'll just marry you. And instead of 15%, it cost me 50%. But anyway,
That's funny.
I think
That's very funny.
And we've always worked together. It's interesting. Since those early days, we've always worked together. We worked together in the business. We worked together in music business, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so funny. You know, it's funny. I actually knew. Oh God, I have to go back in my brain. But in England, I've been to England a number of times, to Brighton specifically, and my friends were friends and cohorts with a trumpet player who booked Dubai. He lived there, and I would not never remember his name. But anyway, it's you don't hear about jazz in Dubai so much, um, for obvious.
Well, we started, so the club was called Hemingway's, and it was very, very popular.
Uh-huh.
And I was hired back a few times, and did lots of radio interviews there, and just kind of became this sort of local celebrity, just with my trio.
Yeah,
And it was very good. It paid really well.
yeah,
It paid really well, like
yeah,
really well, like crazy money for
yeah,
what I did. So,
yeah.
and it was a pleasure to do it. And I got to know the hotel people. They work for the Hilton Hotels International, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just a good relationship for a few years, and it was really nice to do that. And it
Cool.
kind of led to other things. It led to other tours. It led to other connections and things
Yeah.
like that. I knew royalty, which was very interesting.
Hmm.
I got to know some of the royalty there, which was,
Interesting.
we think we know what wealth is. We have no idea what wealth is. We really don't. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
I know we're kind of like, and you're probably gonna like cut me off,
I,
but I
that's
wanted to play one more thing
okay.
before we go, if that's okay.
Sure. Sure.
I was gonna play something that everybody knows, because I know I played a lot of jazz and I played some things, but I'd like to play Bésame Mucho,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then whatever time we have left, it's not going to take me long to do this, but I worked out this little arrangement of Bésame Mucho, which I think it's definitely a different take on, kind of rhythmically. Okay.
Okay.
It's too loud? Sorry, Nancy says the backing track is too loud. Oh,
Oh,
did it sound bad?
no, not to me.
It didn't sound bad to you? Okay, she
No.
made me stop. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit, and maybe that'll fix it. But she said it's fine, Nancy. Yeah. Are you sure?
Yeah, to me it's
Yeah, you're
fine.
sure. Okay. Let me start over.
That sounds great.
She said it's okay, Nancy. I don't know. Sorry. Well, it probably does, you're probably getting a different feed, so I don't know.
Very enjoyable. Thank you. That was great.
So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you, giving me 2 hours because it's a chunk of time. So thank you so much. But it was really fun to get to know you and to hear all this great music and just talk about all the various things and points of view. I love it.
Yeah, great. Let's do it again sometime.
All right. And I'm just going to tell people real quick before you go that the next 4 days are my archives. So Peter Eldridge from the New York Voices, he's the co-founder of the New York Voices. He's on tomorrow. And the next day, Kiki Wow, who is a singer-songwriter and producer. And she's a little bit more in the acoustic rock area. And then you might know Mark Jordan.
Yep.
Yeah, who I'm just crazy about. Mark Jordan is a
Oh yeah.
Canadian guitarist, composer, singer, painter, and
Yeah.
to me, he writes songs like Bonnie Raitt, but he sings like a jazz singer. It's really amazing. And then Sunday, Janice Siegel from the Manhattan Transfer. So
Okay.
that's going to be really fun. And if you're in town here, I'm gigging tomorrow night at Casey's in Canoga Park, which is going to be a really fun, cool hang. So thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate it. It was really fun. And who knows? You never know. Maybe we'll play together sometime too.
Sounds like fun. And where are you in California?
Los Angeles.
LA. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's nicer there than it is here. It's pouring rain out and probably like 3 degrees. So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
no, not three or three. It's let's see, 6 plus 32, like 38, maybe 40
It's
degrees.
still, to me, it's almost like six.
Yeah, not warm.
It's cold, man.
Yeah. We're getting there though. We've had some warm days, so it's spring is up and down, So
Stay warm. The last 2 days here have been strangely hot, like really hot.
right.
But uh, the planet's shifting, isn't it?
Well, anyway, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. See you. See you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for showing up. I appreciate it. Whoever was I had other than the people you told me, I don't know. So hopefully we had some people out, so that was nice.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get some more subscribers.
Great.
Okay. Bye, Paul.